Hello and welcome back to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's Browney here, and today we're asking the big question as Leeds United return to the Premier League. Who can they realistically finish above? So the fight for survival is always brutal, and now Leeds are back in the mix. They'll need to hit the ground running. So who's looking weaker? Which teams are in for a scrap, and where do Leeds stack up? If you're enjoying the show, make sure to like the video, drop a comment in with your thoughts, and of course, subscribe for more Leeds content every week. And joining me as ever is Mr. Jason Booker. Right, let's get into this. Jason, context of this is the last 2 seasons, we've seen the 3 promoted teams relegated straight back down. Why is it going to be different for Leeds United, do we think? It's very, very tough and challenging, and almost kind of immediate when I thought, yeah, we're going up, we're in the Premier League, you're thinking, right, who are we going to be better than? Obviously, normally you would say the 2 teams we're going up with, hopefully, will be stronger than them. But who is going to be that 3rd team, Jason? I mean, it's fascinating to discuss, and it's almost... you start looking at it, don't you? And you're looking at the teams, who's had a bad season, who's it not quite working out for. But let's be honest, every team in the Premier League, probably bar those bottom 3, and even those have touches of class, squads are just filled with quality and internationals all over the park.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a couple of things this season, haven't you? I mean, first off, this is the first time that it's ever happened in back-to-back seasons that all 3 promoted teams have then instantly gone back down. But I do think you've got a couple of outliers there. You know, Luton should never have been in the position that they were. Burnley and Sheffield United were so mismanaged off the pitch, and company refusing to change, and the ownership of both clubs, especially Sheffield United, was all over the place. All 3 of them were never going to realistically survive. And I think you look at this season, and I think the same applies to Ipswich that applied to Luton. They should really have never been in the position that they were. And they were a boosted League One team in the Premier League with a couple of bits of class. But, you know, and then their recruitment didn't really go in the way that it wanted to, with the likes of Calvin Phillips, you know, wanting to come in and be their marquee loan signing and not even displacing Sam Morsey. You know what I mean? Like, they need to get them acquisitions right. So I think they were kind of at sync. And then you look at Leicester and Southampton, and I think the same applies to them too, that applied to Burnley and Sheffield United in the year before. Yeah. Bit of mismanagement off the pitch. Leicester especially all over the place. And Southampton were just completely and utterly not prepared for what the Premier League were going to throw at them. So I'm choosing to see a positive spin on the fact that them 6 teams didn't survive, and I don't see it as just an outlier that promoted teams cannot stay up. I think Burnley will stand a decent chance as well if they get the recruitment right and they can continue what they've built on this summer. The difficulty for them will be keeping hold of their prized assets, as in Esteve and James Trafford as an example, the linchpins of where the team were kind of built on. So, but talking on Leeds United, you know, we do have hopefully the recruitment power to improve the squad efficiently enough to make us competitive. And then we have to hope, just like all promoted teams do, that there's a couple of outliers within the Premier League that we can replace. I suppose the problem comes and the challenge comes in that some of them potential candidates are looking stronger than ever. So I think of Brentford, I think of Bournemouth, I think of Fulham, I think of Everton. You know, these teams, especially the first few that I mentioned, have been establishing themselves and improving year on year on year to the point now where they're actually competing for top 10. And Everton, you know, who notoriously have been a bit lucky over the last 3 or 4 seasons to survive, have now got David Moyes in charge, a new ground coming, and they look like they're going to move on to another level. So it does make it really, really difficult, where now you're seeing a Premier League table with Manchester United and Tottenham as the 2 teams that sit directly above the relegation trapdoor, which is crazy. So difficult one, mate. Yeah, real tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just going to mention those 2, obviously, big fish in the Premier League, traditionally top 6, and they find themselves, you know, 17th and 16th this season. And it's one of those as well, because you're thinking that's not going to happen again, is it really? And they're not going to get relegated, are they? Just, you know, they're just too kind of secure for that. Surely those 2 teams are not going to be 2 that you could even put on the list as potentials. I mean, elsewhere, I mean, West Ham seem a bit of a basket case. It's not kind of really gone well for Potter. Obviously, good result at the weekend. Wolves, obviously, massively improved since the managerial switch. You know, it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, I'm looking at and to be honest, I mean, elsewhere, you know, Crystal Palace looks so stable. You know, they had a really bad start to the season, then got their act together, and you kind of think in the Leeds next season, you think, do we need someone to really fall off a cliff? I'm talking about, you know, Forest have had this amazing season, but you know, we've seen how kind of crazy their owner is, and that looks like it could go off at any point. Do we need something like that to come along where, you know, the wheels just fall off? Or are you expecting maybe the teams that are near the bottom, you know, your West Ham, Wolves, to kind of be the ones potentially that Leeds could finish above?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of gloss over the reputation of big clubs and just think it's impossible for them to finish in the bottom three. I actually disagree. Like, there is no divine right for any team to finish in any position. And I think, you know, ultimately it's just a game of football, right? So, like, if them games of football transpire in a certain way, a bit like when Leicester won the league, the flip reverse of that is, you know, a team like Manchester United getting relegated, as unfathomable as that can feel for somebody that grew up like me and you did in the 90s watching them dominate.
Yeah.
If they have another year of terrible recruitment and mismanagement, and, you know, if they were to carry on the current trend, they would, under Hammer in this, is they would finish on less than a point a game. They would be finishing on 38 points, which in some Premier League seasons would see them relegated. So, you know, and Lou, you know, who's on the show, has made the point that Champions League football could be the worst thing that ever happens to them. If they then, you know, can't back it up with good recruitment next year, and they you know, they've got the distraction of European football combined with the fact that they've still got these struggles within the camp, who knows where they could finish? Again, as unrealistic as it can feel to think of Manchester United, Newcastle have done it, Villa have done it, and Leeds have all done it, you know, because of different reasons, but they've all found themselves in a situation in which they shouldn't. And sure, Manchester United, bigger institution, and the pull and size of that club is a bit different, but it's ultimately still, look at Valencia this season in La Liga as an example. You know, they're under Corberan, they're going to survive. They've done a great job, but when he took over, they were buried in the bottom three. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. But you make a great point on Forest. So just bringing it back to Forest, I think they are one candidate that could potentially find themselves in basket case scenario, because, you know, no way should their owner be encroaching on the pitch, having it out with players and managers at the best of times, you know, when they probably, you know, feel like they have the divine right to do that, let alone when they've just dropped points against Leicester. They didn't even lose the game, and they've had the season that they've had. It's crazy. So yeah, they could find themselves in hot water if he carries on going about it in the same way.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm sure a lot of Leeds United fans will be thinking dream scenario next season, Leeds United stay up and Manchester United get relegated. We can dream, can't we? We can dream, Jay. Good stuff. That's it for this episode of the West Yorkshire Football Show. Let us know in the comments which teams do you think Leeds can finish above next season. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep it locked for more Leeds United talk and all things West Yorkshire football. I've been Stephen Brown, and alongside me has been Jason Booker. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.